Now, the Canadian Grand Prix saw the handing out of a rare penalty in Formula 1 as one driver was deemed to have committed unsportsmanlike conduct. The driver who committed the offence is none other than the babyface Lando Norris. So stay tuned as we explain why the McLaren man was given the penalty and what it says about F1 stewards. Lando Norris and his recent McLaren troubles. Although he may still look as young as he did when he first joined F1, Lando Norris is actually an established presence on the grid and is competing in his 5th season. Norris is a driver that is hugely rated and tipped to be a future world champion, but right now he's enduring arguably the toughest spell of his career. After an excellent 2021, in which he finished 6th in the World Championship, including 4 podiums, the 2022 regulation changes sent Norris and McLaren backwards down the grid. The MCL 36 had issues all over it, from the brakes to a severe lack of downforce, and even a driver with the talent of Norris struggled to get anything out of the car. He finished the race 15th and secured just 1 podium on the way to P7 in the standings. But little did he know that in 2023 it would get worse, not better. From the moment he saw the car over the winter break and the data it was providing, Norris knew that they were in trouble. The problems of 2022 just got worse in 2023, so it came of little surprise when he finished the 2 opening races in 17th. McLaren have since recovered a little, with Norris scoring his first points in Australia, but the car is still not where he would like it to be, meaning he has to use every inch of his cunning and skill to get the most out of it, and this was what got him in trouble with the FIA. Norris's penalty in Canada. When George Russell got a little too familiar with the barrier during lap 12, the safety car was called out, and at the time Norris was directly behind his teammate Oscar Piastri. The safety car provided a great opportunity for all the teams to get a cheap pit stop in, and McLaren opted to bring both drivers in at the same time in what is commonly referred to as double stacking. The problem for Norris is he didn't want to waste any time waiting behind Piastri, so instead he eased off the throttle a little just to build up a gap between him and his teammate in front. McLaren would have thought all was well until they were alerted that the stewards were taking a closer look at the movements of Norris over a possible infringement, and sure enough, the penalty came. The stewards decided that Norris had committed unsportsmanlike conduct for what they deemed was Norris slowing down. Their official verdict said, the stewards reviewed positioning, marshalling system data, video, timing, telemetry, team radio, and in-car video evidence. During the safety car period, the driver slowed to allow a gap to form between his teammate in car 81 and him. In doing so, he delayed the cars behind. There was a significant difference in speed between car 4 and car 81 between turns 10 and 13, approximately 50 km per hour. And as a result, he was handed a 5-second penalty, which all but ended his race in terms of competition, but while he crossed the line in 8th, his penalty booted him down to 13th and out of the points. Perplexed Norris. Norris, who later revealed that the team didn't explain why he had received the penalty until after the race, was confused by the strange penalty and suggested that if the FIA applied that rule more strictly, everyone would get a penalty. He said, "It doesn't make sense to me. I was 3 seconds, 4 seconds behind my delta, which everyone quite often is. It was too early to box for what we were planning to do, so I wasn't planning to box in the first place, then I got a call just before the pit entry. I'm surprised. Of course, you go slow and you go quick, you speed up, you want to keep the temperature in the tyres, so everyone leaves gaps and open up gaps. It wasn't like I was 10 seconds behind my delta, so if it's because of the delta difference, then probably most people should be given penalties for the last 3 years or 4 years. So I'm a bit confused, but nothing I can do. I slowed down to try and warm up the tyres a bit, and then as soon as the team told me to box, I pushed and tried to go in as fast as I can." Has unsportsmanlike conduct ever been used before in F1? Now, when hearing unsportsmanlike conduct, your mind naturally turns to sports like football, where such an offence happens in almost every game, yet in Formula 1 it's truly a rarity, and there has been little example of it taking place before. The most recent mention came before the 2021 Dutch Grand Prix, in which the FIA urged teams not to take advantage of a very narrow pit lane in order to block rivals. They said at the time, The positioning of a car in the pit lane during the race, which impedes another car in the fast lane or prevents another car from stopping in or leaving its allocated pit stop position, may be considered an infringement of the principles of fairness in a competition, along with unsportsmanlike behavior by a competitor and/or driver. Such actions will be deemed a breach of regulations under Article 12.2.1.I of the FIA International Sporting Code. But having received a warning, no team fell foul of this rule and the penalty was not handed out. The most obvious example of drivers coming close to breaking this rule is the black and white flag, which is waved as a warning to a driver that they've been reported for unsportsmanlike behaviour. The most common example of this for exceeding track limits, which Max Verstappen did during the Spanish Grand Prix. If a driver continues to commit the offence, he will then be handed a penalty. But you have to go back even further to find an example of a team actually being penalised for unsportsmanlike conduct, and that came in 1992. In what turned out to be their only season, Andrea Moda Formula was expelled from the World Championship for issuing team orders which at the time were banned. The FIA said the team had brought the sport into disrepute and they were subsequently banned from the paddock. Norris's penalty was much less severe, but was it the correct one? Should Norris have been penalised? Norris makes a fair point that drivers often slow and then quicken in order to keep heat in their tyres. If we go back to the 2022 Singapore Grand Prix, Sergio Perez's win was in jeopardy when he was investigated for falling too far behind the safety car. The Mexican was eventually handed a 5-second penalty, which was small enough for him to keep the win. But the odd question was, why was this penalty handed out if Perez had actually twice fallen behind the safety car and yet only received a reprimand for the other offence? Furthermore, on neither occasion was he accused of unsportsmanlike behaviour, as Norris was, which makes it all the more questionable why the McLaren man was hit with this particular penalty. As Norris said, if the stewards were this strict on every occasion, there would be a lot more penalties, but it was not just with the handing out of this penalty that showed their inconsistency. Alpine's loose rear wing. Late on in the race, Norris was trailing the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, and there was a particular part of the Alpine car that caught Norris's attention. As he was trailing him, Norris could see the rear wing was wobbling from side to side and duly told his team on the radio. Norris said, "If this falls off and hits someone, it's going to be really bad. It's getting worse and worse. It's dangerous." Now, drivers trying to get their rivals in trouble with the stewards is nothing new, but in the past the stewards haven't been afraid to wave the black and orange flag, which indicates to the driver their car has mechanical problems which are likely to pose a danger to themselves or others, and this means they must stop in the pits as soon as possible. Kevin Magnussen became the unfortunate target of 3 of these flags in 2022, much to Haas's annoyance, so why was Ocon spared? Alpine boss Otmar Szafnauer defended it by saying that the team had designed it that way. Szafnauer said, "The wing held. We designed and built this wing, so we knew what was going on and we were glad it wouldn't come loose. We test this in research and development. We put it through these tests simply because of the way it's mounted, and we're therefore seeing these types of modes and understanding whether or not it's going to come loose." But anyway, who watched the race could tell the rear wing was wobbling far more than is usually accepted for an F1 car. Norris right to feel aggrieved. Having been on the wrong end of 2 stewards' decisions, it's fair to see why Norris was a little confused after he got out of the car in Montreal, and in reality, McLaren needs points more than ever now. In Canada, they came away empty-handed for the 5th time this season, and their target of a P4 finish in the Constructors' standing already looks a step too far. Thanks for watching this video, and let us know in the comments if you think the penalty handed out to Norris was fair or if the stewards got it wrong. As always, like the video and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a release here on the DRS Straight.